the thing that I was very ready for people to be up like upset that he didn't kill the Joker or those kinds of things, which I thought if he kills the Joker, I always see that as a failure. There always has to be a way the Joker gets hurt or does something that, kills himself, and that Batman can let him die. Don't get me wrong. He doesn't have to save him, in my opinion, if Joker is sort of bleeding out, or that kind of thing, by his own hand. But he can't sort of deliver that blow. And so I was kind of braced for this. Why didn't he kill the Joker stuff? And that came a little bit, but not really. But the thing I didn't see was that people, because of I wasn't paying attention to a lot of the hype around the whole thing, because I was just tunnel vision about starting Zero Year and everything, about all of the other books being involved. And I read all the other books. I mean, I was really proud of the stories that came out of it, but I just wasn't paying attention to how much hype was happening all over to this someone is going to die kind of thing. And so then when that came out, and we got great reviews for it, some of the best we've gotten. But there was this undercurrent of real anger at us for not killing someone, and for this sense of, why was it an event if nobody died, and stuff that's legitimate. I just didn't think of it that way. That caught me off guard for the first time, where I didn't see that coming. Usually I'm pretty braced for criticism and ready, but that kind of hit me from left field, because it didn't occur to me that they'd be reading all of those books in addition to these and paying all this money and thinking, what's the payoff in that way? And they're right to. It just wasn't. I was just writing Batman, so I didn't see it that way. So that caught me, and for a few weeks I was very sort of, insecure about, did I read this, not about the ending, but just, did I read this wrong? Do I not have a good sense of what people want? I'm not going to change what I'm doing, but I was already signed up to do Zero Year, and I knew what I was going to do. But I get tremendously anxious, in that case, where it's like this, like the story we're doing in June, people really might come out and be like, that is the dumbest idea ever. And actually in the book it says this might be the dumbest idea ever. One of the characters says it. But I'm still going to do it, meaning I don't care what people think, in the way that it's not going to change what I'm going to try. But I deeply care what they think, in terms of, it sucks when they don't like it, or it sucks when they are mad at you and all of that stuff. But, it really does not, it won't turn the wheel on the book no matter what, because then I feel like I'd be doing something even worse than whatever it is that they don't like. I mean, in terms of the spirit of it, I'd be just doing a disservice to the book itself and to them by listening to them in that regard. But and then when I was starting Zero Year, and then when I said I was doing Zero Year publicly, it was this like wave. I wish I did see coming, but it was this like wave of anger, where it was like, why are you doing an origin? That's so boring. Why would you do it? Why would you rewrite Year One? All of the stuff. And I was like, I knew it was coming, but then I was sort of I was not in a good place already, and it just totally knocked me back. And I was like, really, really, I got, because I've always had, anxiety, and I've had my ups and downs with depression, and I've been on medication since I was 18 for the stuff, and I just got real bad. For me, when that happens, I start to get these tremors psychologically, where I can feel something's not right. I start waking up in the middle of the night, and I, sweating, and I get panics. I start having panic attacks about stuff that I shouldn't be panicking about. And then all of a sudden, my brain will like lock into a thing where I just consistently am panicking and worrying all the time. And I cannot relax. I'm like, every few minutes I'm worried about the same thing, and I'll have to call my friends and be like, ugh, is this right? Am I paranoid to think this? Is this true? And my friends, like Lemire was great. Lemire, James Tynan, like, all these guys, like, they were really good, because no one had ever seen me that out of whack. And I also had Superman starting, which I was extremely nervous about, with working with Jim. And all of that stuff at once, I was like, ugh. And The Wake was also starting, and I was just, so it was really rough, and I got very bad. I mean, I really was like,
No,
a
I
mess.
completely. I'll tell you, I have PTSD from my
Mm,
time in the Marines, as I did 2 tours in Iraq.
mm,
I know exactly how you feel because there are times, I've been I'm on medication for it, and there are times from my experiences where I'm in that panic mode. I think, I don't sleep at night.
yeah,
I used to live in this country house. We live in like a suburb now, but I used to live out in the country. I never slept because I was literally up all night long checking doors and
yeah,
windows and stuff. So with the depression and that kind of stuff, I understand 100% what not the same scenario, but I know what you go through. I just wanted you to
yeah.
know that from me.
Well, I appreciate that, and I certainly appreciate your service, dude.
Thank
And
you.
that's what you dealt with is much more than anything that I would. It's just for me. It's just always been that way since I was a kid, and since I was a teenager, and it it comes and goes. And if I'm careful and I try and be healthy, and I watch for it, I feel like it's fine. But when it gets bad, I mean, if I'm not careful and I let it, it can get very bad. And when it gets bad, it definitely I can get incapacitated by it, where I don't make any sense. Like I'm worried about things that are irrational constantly. I mean, and the worst that it's got, this wasn't the worst time at all. I mean, the worst time was when I first got married and moved out to where we lived, this area, and I was just isolated and working in prose, and I wasn't taking care of myself, and I just got worse and worse and worse. But when it gets really bad, I mean, I'm worried about things that if I told you, you'd be like, you're crazy, or if you're like, when I get worried that I'm contracting, that there's something unhealthy, where I'm like, I get very worried about, sometimes I get very worried about, and you can see this in Batman a lot. Like I think the biggest theme that I come back to a lot is this idea of the limitations of his own mortality, that he has to be taught humility somehow and realize that, he ends at his fingertips and his toes, and he might be this transcendent figure, but he's still just a person, and he will die eventually. And that's Endgame is about that. But Death of the Family is about that too, and that's what Joker is always saying, is that life is meaningless. He's saying, why is the Red Hood? He's like, why bother trying anything? The whole point of the Red Hood gang is to say, we could just show up at your business and shoot you on a Tuesday for no reason, like a random gunman, or blow up a marathon that you're running in. So why bother? I mean, none of it matters. And Batman to me is a figure of meaning. He's a figure that says, you know, if I can take a senseless, meaningless thing and turn it into an engine of purpose and create this great hero out of it, then you can overcome your fear that what you're doing is insubstantial and become who you want to be in some way. And so, anyway, what I'm getting at is, my fears can cycle and become things like I get very worried about mortality, and I get worried that it's going too fast, and I get fixated on this idea of being sick or ill, and it gets so bad that like I can't look at a newspaper that has anything about someone dying of cancer or anything like that, because it causes me a panic attack, or I can't watch anything on TV that has those things. So it just becomes really like the world becomes like a funhouse of mirrors of where everything's just pointing back at you in these scary ways, and it's impossible to stop it. Where you just it seems silly because I'm a man, like I'm a grown man, not like a little kid, but the feeling is just abject, terror all the time. That it's this assurance in your mind that everything is going downhill, and you'll never be as happy again as you were before this began, and
Right.
that this time there's
Oh
no
yeah.
way out of it, and
Yeah.
there's no way out of it. And so I was not that quite bad where I was being like completely irrational, where I like, in those cases where I've gotten that bad, like I said, it's very hard where you know I can't go through my day without panicking multiple times, and having, it really can be, it could just be very very, incapacitating. But this was sort of like on the way there, where
Right.
I was constantly calling my friends, asking them if they thought that, that I was a terrible writer. That was what I was fixated on. That deep down I was no good, and I was trying to write Zero Year. And every time I started to write it, it's like that same voice that when you're worried about whatever it is about health would be like, you're sick, right? Deep down there's something. No, there's not. No, there's yes, there is. Yes, there is. oh, you're going to read that article about this? You should read this part because it's all about what's going to happen to you. Oh, I'm not going to read that. Okay, well, there's something on TV. Oh, you're watching that? You see that person that just died?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's what's going to happen to you, you know? And
Yeah.
it's the same voice. And when you're writing and that happens, it was like this, where I'd be like, oh, you're going to write that sentence? That sentence fucking sucks. Oh yeah, okay. Or you're not going to write, what do you write that? Okay, that's even worse. Oh, you're going to read that comic that you always liked? You'll never be as good as that. That's the point. Oh, you're going to read that bad comic or that comic you thought wasn't that good? But you're worse than that. And it's just constantly like that. And then, it's exhausting. And Greg, I remember being really scared to tell Greg that I was having trouble because I had not spoken to him about this, and we were getting close to the time I needed to start, And I had planned it out. I had walked him through it. I knew it was going to be, I was so excited about it beforehand, where it was going to be irreverent, and it was going to be post-apocalyptic and colorful and bright and all the things that I thought would just surprise people. And then all of a sudden, I just couldn't do it. I was like just totally a wreck. And I told Greg, I remember calling him and just being like, teary, and just being like, I am just a mess, dude. I'm terrified and I apologize. I'm trying to write this, but it is hard, and I might need you to tell them with me that we need a little more time. And he was just like, if you need that, but you're going to get through it. And he immediately related to me with it and told me about his life. And like, we stayed on the phone for a very long time. And then he started calling me and checking in on me and telling me like, let's talk it through. And I would tell him what I was doing, and he would tell me how much he liked it. He really came through as a friend, and as a friend. And it really made me realize at that moment, this is a special person, in your life, like not just a great partner on this book, because he was already a great partner. We'd already done these 2 arcs, but it was like, no, this is like one of your best friends, so someone, and from that point on, 2 years ago or whatever it was, like we've been really, really, really close. And now there's a lot of stuff he's gone through or I've gone through, or we talk all the time and stuff. So I hope that comes through to people, because I'm very proud to be his friend. It sounds hokey. I don't mean to get like all sentimental, but I'm very proud to call him my friend. He's a great guy, and he's someone I admire tremendously, and he's been a real mentor and a real big brother to me, and I feel very, very lucky. Even more lucky than getting to write Batman or being on Batman with him, to have made him, made a friend out of him. So that's true.
So
honestly.
When you go through that stress of that, and you go through that with Greg Capullo, and that you've gone through that wave of people criticize, oh no, another origin story, whatever. Is there the satisfaction later when all those same assholes have to backpedal and say how great it was?
Yeah, I mean, there is, but I mean, Greg, he loves being that guy in that way, where people really criticized his Lincoln March for looking too much like Bruce Wayne, and he so was mad about it because he was doing it because he was supposed to be his brother, and he couldn't say anything. And then when it finally came out, he was so happy. He was just like, "You see, you fuckers, whatever." For me, it was like, and I get that way too. Don't get me wrong, but I just more get like, it's more when you see a turn and they like it, and you feel like, for me, the gratification is they saw that it was not that it's like, haha, you did it. It's more they saw what you were going for. You know what I mean? Like, it's because all these things, like if I tell you the idea coming in June, or I told you, Endgame, you could say the idea of Joker being immortal, I fucking hate that. That sounds the dumbest thing in the world. But hopefully the way we do it is something you see where we're coming from and what it's about. And then that to me is extremely gratifying. Like the turn from I didn't want that to I like it is more of a connection with a reader, where the reader sees it, they see what you're talking about Batman. That Batman, like, 0 Years is very much about what Batman meant to me as a kid and what I want him to mean for my kids. And Endgame is about Bruce having to look his own mortality in the, look at it in the light of day for once, instead of preparing to avoid it or preparing to, get away, overcome it. Look at it and say, actually, and this is not giving away the ending in terms of what happens, at all, but giving away the meaning of the ending. Bruce said